My next question pertains to the construction. When we talk about a functional spillway, and if I've missed this along the line, I apologize, but we're not going to see a complete chute, correct? We're going to see something where there's work on the top and on the bottom, and in the middle where we see that exposed rock, that's still going to be there, correct? And if that's the case, how do you control the water coming over that area, and are there environmental concerns associated with that?
Ow! Yeah, well, I'll let Jeannie dig in if I don't cover it, but it will be a fully constructed spillway chute, and there will be different types of concrete between the roller compacted and the structural concrete, but it will be flush, so it'll be a smooth surface. It will be a full, complete chute.
Hey, Chewy, you ready for an Oroville update? Thursday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday, the 9th of August. It's time for another DWR conference call. Let's jump in there and see what's going on. And I also got a bunch of your questions. Let's see if we can get some answers.
Gentlemen, please stand by. We're about to begin. Good day and welcome to this California Department of Water Resources update on Lake Oroville Spillways Emergency Recovery Project conference call. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I'd like to turn the conference over to Erin Mellon with the Department of Water Resources. Please go ahead. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you do wish to ask a question, please signal by pressing *1 on your telephone keypad. Please also make sure that it's off to allow your signal to reach our equipment. Once again, *1 will place you into the queue. And we'll first go to Juan Brown with the Union newspaper.
Morning, just to clarify, it is the shoe fly connection that is interfering with the drilling rigs. It's preventing the extension of the secant wall.
Yes. So the temporary shoe fly transmission lines will need to be moved to get the drilling equipment into the area where the wall will be constructed.
Okay. On a recent flyover, I noticed a new access road into the backside of the headgate structure. Can you refresh our memory? What's going on with the inspections of the gates and the head structure? And is there talk about a long-term plan for rebuilding or working on the gates and head structure?
Yeah, let me actually introduce another speaker for the call. This is Joel Ledesma, and he is the Deputy Director for the State Water Project. Can I answer that question?
Yeah, hi, good morning. So for the radial gates, there is maintenance that started on those the gates. So request for proposals went out this week. So we'll be taking that on for just maintenance work. Now, any long-term fixes will be done through the Oroville Dam assessment that we will be doing next year, but that will take into account all Oroville, and it will obviously include the superstructure that you're referring to.
Okay, thanks. And one more, Erin, can you clarify what the reimbursements you mentioned earlier are all about?
Yeah, so that's the FEMA reimbursement of $22.8 million for the first portion that has been submitted by DWR for the response efforts. So that's from the early days of the emergency response. What was submitted was $30 million, and as is regular FEMA process, you expect to get about up to 75% reimbursement. So that was just the first of what will be many submissions for reimbursement.
And we don't know what that total is at this point?
Right, correct. We are still pulling numbers together.
Okay, very good. I got more questions, but I'll let some other folks get in line.
Thanks so much, Juan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's some of the highlights from the DWR Press Conference today on 9 August. Sure enough, the secant cutoff wall from my last update, the reason they've stopped, well, they haven't stopped construction, but the reason the secant cutoff wall is not cut all the way across the eroded part of the emergency spillway is because of the power lines. The shoe fly connection, temporary power lines, which basically followed the original set of power lines, is in the way of the drilling rigs. The drilling rigs are too tall for the existing power line, so they're going to have to once again move the shoe fly connection out of the way of where they want to place the rest of the secant cutoff wall on the emergency spillway. Right here is the problem. Now that's either a very major oversight or perhaps the geotechnical reports required that the placement of the secant cutoff wall ended up conflicting with the power lines. Don't know which. But regardless, it doesn't really matter because the deadline for the emergency spillway is not until December of this year or January of next year. Plenty of time to get to work through that. Again, remember, they're not planning on using that emergency spillway ever again, especially once they get the main spillway up and operational this November. The Oroville lake level is currently at 783 feet, 7,000 CFS out, and they're still working on lowering that lake level to 700 feet by 1 November. Doug LaMalfa was voicing an opinion that lowering the lake level much below 700 feet is unnecessary, and it looks like the debate is going to remain that the lake level will probably remain near 700 feet. I don't think they'll drain it a whole lot lower than that. 700 feet by November should take care of all the different concerns and balance between public safety and water storage. They've got 83 days till the 1 November deadline. All the demolition of the old spillway is completed. 10% of the roller compacted concrete has been laid. It's about 25,000 cubic yards. And I did verify that that roller compacted concrete that we've been watching is, in fact, in just the lower plunge pool, the lower part of the spillway. And RCC in the upper plunge pool probably won't start for another week or two. I also verified that the road going into the upper plunge pool will remain for now. They'll start with the roller compacted concrete in the upper plunge pool and then back that road out as they raise the roller compacted concrete in the upper plunge pool. The forensics team's interviews are complete with DWR. Again, their report won't be out until this fall, and they've also the forensics team has also set up a direct line for DWR employees to contact the forensics team directly without the DWR getting in the middle, so that if they have any additional information to tell the forensics team to let them know. Help them with their investigation. The first reimbursement from FEMA has come through, $22.8 million. They requested the first reimbursement of $30 million. You normally get a certain percentage of what you ask for. And there's going to be an unknown amount of additional reimbursements, a request to FEMA for money for this Oroville disaster. I suspect it's going to be at least $250,000, if not upwards of $400 million. To be requested by FEMA. How much they come through with will remain to be seen. Federal Emergency Management Agency. I asked about this new access road to the headgate structure from the lake side of the lake and what's the status of the gates. And yes, the maintenance has started. Inspect and repair is necessary of the gates at the main spillway and the head structure to the spillway itself. There's also been put out requests for proposals for a long-term repair or rebuild of the head structure at Oroville Dam. And that's going to be an ongoing long-term project through the Oroville Dam assessment. So all this talk about nothing being done at the gates at Oroville is wrong. Our friends at KCRA and the mainstream media have not been paying attention to the Blanco Lirio channel and had a pretty large misconception of what the final spillway is going to look like this fall. They thought that the giant plunge pool was going to remain a giant plunge pool this fall, And they were more, of course, concerned about environmental concerns with that idea than the concerns of the people down below. But DWR got them straightened out and explained to them that, yes, they're going to fill that plunge pool all the way up by November 1st, and you'll see a completed spillway by November 1st. Now remember, the top and the bottom will be structural concrete, and the middle section where the plunge pool in will be roller compacted concrete. And I got further clarification on the training walls on the sides of the spillway. The portions of the spillway that are going to be structural concrete will have structural concrete training walls up to the final design height, which I believe is about 30 feet. The middle section, RCC section, next year will be carved out. Both the bottom and the sides of the insides of the training walls will be carved out, and structural concrete will be placed to match the rest of the spillway. That'll be next season. I also asked about erosion control measures, and yes, we're going to see towards the end of this construction season hydroseeding and straw bales, as with any construction site, along the sides of the spillway of all that dirt area that they've torn up. Now, we've heard from DWR, but to really dig into this project and see the drama behind the scenes, it's best to read these memorandums from the Board of Consultants. They've just released memorandum number 9 and number 10. It's old news, it's from last month, but it really shows the give and take on a complex project like this of what's going on behind the scenes and how best to get this thing done in the time allotted. Remember, the Board of Consultants is a third party that's just overseeing the project and providing recommendations. It's like having a third pilot in the cockpit that's far enough away from the project or the flying to be able to see the big picture and make sure they're not missing anything important, like power lines versus drilling rigs. Remember how we first thought that this design was going to be a structural spillway all the way through and through after 2017, and now of course we're talking about an RCC center section, and DWR argued that no, we've never changed, it was always going to be an RCC center section. Well, this memorandum number 9 alludes to I believe to the fact that truly was the case, that there was a large change in the plans. Pro tip for DWR, if there's a change in the plans, just go ahead and admit it. We understand it's a huge project and things are changing all the time. Speaking of changes, they also discuss in memorandum number 9 the impact on the schedule that the unauthorized blasting had on the damage of the upper portion of the spillway chute and the impacts that has on the schedule. Here on page 3 of memo number 9, they talk about switching over to the RCC center section, bringing that RCC section up level with the structural concrete on both ends, and hardening that last layer of roller compacted concrete to withstand the flows as they worry about the strength of roller compacted concrete versus structural concrete, of course, for the 2017-18 season. So they're going to get a final RCC strength of 10,000 psi. They also discussed that the top layer of RCC will have no expansion joints or transverse joints in it, and that they do expect cracking in that top layer of RCC. There will, however, be expansion joints in the RCC layers below. Remember, roller compacted concrete is non-structural concrete. It does not have rebar in it. Here on page 6, the BOC raises concerns about the RCC training walls along the RCC section because due to the steepness of the train getting into access that location where the training walls will be raised. Remember in previous updates we talked about the transition from the structural concrete to the roller compacted concrete was going to be a smooth transition? Well, now they're talking about as much as a 3-foot step down from the structural concrete down to the roller compacted concrete, and a similar sort of a bump of a different design on the lower end of the spillway, and the BOC's concern for cavitation concerns in that location, as well as cavitation concerns along the roller compacted concrete portion of the spillway due to the smooth surface and the laminar flow of the water. The BOC is also recommending the use of aeration at these joints to help prevent cavitation. Here on memo number 10, dated 25 July, they get into these issues a little deeper. Now it looks like the BOC is raising their eyebrow a little bit about the schedule, and most importantly, it says here, because of the higher than anticipated waste from the processing of excavated on-site material of coarse and fine RCC aggregates, the production rates of these materials was determined to be insufficient to meet the required RCC production rates, and therefore they're mobilizing a second on-site plant to manufacture RCC aggregates. They need more material, and it looks like they also need to get some more material from somewhere else. So I'll post links to these memos. They're a treasure trove of detailed information for those of you that are looking for that kind of information on the situation at Oroville. So I hope that answers some of your questions. Stay tuned. We'll get more and more of these questions answered as time goes on and we watch this thing get built together and they make that November 1st deadline, hopefully, to have a completed 100,000 CFS capable spillway by the 1st of November. Stay tuned and thanks for your generous support. Meanwhile, here's the latest DWR footage from 10 August. Look at that road system. A long way to go in the main plunge pool here. That's all RCC in the dark gray concrete, and there's the first indication of the kind of bump style transition from RCC to structural concrete at the lower end of the spillway. More RCC operations: dump, grade, and roll. There you can see the GPS antennas on top of the dozer blade helping guide the lift elevation. That looks like more demolition to me. Is that above the upper plunge pool? A little late in the season. Let's get her done.